part 2. If you haven't seen part 1, go check it out. I'm making a playlist of all these videos so you can watch them all at the same time. But anyway, let's get right into it.
All I wanna do is be with you, always be the light.
Before I go any further, I did say some bad things, a few bad words in my last video, and I do apologize for it, but I was just being honest and telling everybody how I feel. And yeah, living in a group home was not always sunshine and rainbows, for that matter. But anyway, the staff that I was telling you about, okay, after she left, you know, things started getting very peaceful. Like, before she left for maternity leave, like, she wasn't allowed to take us grocery shopping. The house manager did it because they didn't trust her because of what she did with the lingerie. And she was not allowed to take us anywhere. The only time she could take us anywhere was when we went out to eat on Fridays. But anyway, there were times where Anna was not that bad, but after I ratted her out for doing what she did, you know, she learned that I wasn't the one to be messing with, okay? Because there were times where she was all right. Anyway, but when she was in a foul mood, I just pretty much stayed in my room. And I was not the only one who stayed in my room. The other girls had stayed in their rooms too because they didn't want to deal with her. And she didn't mess with the other girls because some of those girls had a very bad temper, and Anna was afraid, or she knew if she messed with them, they would get their ass beat, or she would get her ass beat. And she did not want that, so she was all kissing their butts and trying to make them happy. But anyway, after Anna had left, things started a lot more smoothly, and I wasn't the only person that did not like her. My house manager didn't like her. The case manager didn't like her. None of the other staff liked her, and none of the other individuals liked her. So, to be honest, nobody liked her. It wasn't just me. She was just not a good staff. I mean, a lot of staff complained about her. But anyway, after she left, things were a lot quieter. And we had this other girl, okay, she was actually pretty cool. And to be honest, she was one of the few she was pretty much one of the only staff that had her head screwed on right. And yeah, what I did like about this group home in Lubbock, like, we went out to eat every Friday, which was nice. We would get our allowance and go out to eat. And then we'd go to Hastings and meet up with one of the other group homes because they were pretty much our friends, and sometimes they'd meet us and go out to eat and stuff. And we'd go to the movies, we'd go bowling, we went to the fair, we went shopping. And there were days where we would just go get Cokes. And we'd go to church on Sundays. And all of that stuff. And we had individuals that didn't really want to do anything because, you know, they were used to being independent and they had their freedom taken away and they were angry. And they had some issues, and I don't want to go too much into detail. Let's just say that things did not work out for them, so they didn't last. And then we had Glenda Banks. Now, Glenda Banks, I had mentioned her in the previous, but at first she was okay, but, you know, in a way, I kind of do feel sorry for her because, you know, I kind of blame her. I blame her parents for this because her parents were scared of her. They spoiled her rotten. They gave her what she wanted when she wanted. They pretty much kissed her butt to make her happy. And that's why the way that she was the way that she was. And, you know, she was a princess. Or she thought she was a princess. And she expected me to wait on her hand and foot. Like, do her chores for her. And the staff would be like, Kira, don't do that. She can do her own chores. I'm like, okay. And I didn't want to, but then again, I didn't want to know. I didn't want to say no. And this is when I've learned a valuable lesson. It is okay to stand your ground and say no. I think I would now because Glinda was just lazy. Like, all she wanted to do was talk on the phone. And if it was something she didn't want to do, she'd say her knee hurts or her back hurts. She got this, she got that, and she would make herself throw up on purpose. I know it's gross and yeah, she was an attention seeker. And that's why a lot of times when she was on her deathbed, they would still make her go to work anyway. I mean, she was like the little boy who cried wolf. I'm pretty sure you've heard, we all know that story, but there's a moral to that story. Don't play games like that. And she was with me for over a year, and Glinda, I felt used and abused from her. Like, and I would be scared to say no. Like, then one day she messed with me on the wrong day. Like, one day she fell at work. Okay, she didn't fall. She's like, oh, my knee hurts. Oh my God, my knee hurts. I can't walk. I can't, she would act crazy and say she couldn't walk when we go see your boyfriend, you're just fine. When it's something you want to do, you're fine. Glinda wanted to do what Glinda wanted to do. And looking back now, I would have done more if she'd have shut her trap. And I do know, as a matter of fact, because, one night we got into a fight. And, the next day, like, she would roll her eyes at me. And she kept on bringing it up. And I said, okay, enough. That is enough. It is over with. Let's just move on from it. Focus on what's got in front of us. You're going to try, stop trying to make me feel bad. And yeah, Glinda was something else. And, she took advantage of me. Like, one time she slapped me. And I was being very nice enough to invite her to go with me and my family. And my sister at the time told me, Kira, she's not coming next time. It's just going to have to be you because I don't want to deal with her issues. Glinda was a hypochondriac. And I don't feel sorry for her. It's the way I blame her parents because her parents pretty much ruined her. Anyway, my name, well, it was in 2008. Well, later that fall, she moved in 2008 and then came and then was living there for over the year, the rest of the time that I was there. And I moved in to the group home in Lubbock in June of 2006, and I was there till November of 2009. And the reason why I remember, because it was right after Thanksgiving. So I went home and visited for Thanksgiving, and I had to come back and pack my stuff. Well, I was on the HCS list at the time, and my name came up on the list, and it was kind of an easy decision, but then kind of not, and I felt at peace with my decision. And when I moved to Amarillo, the next group home I lived in, it was my temporary home, but sometimes I wish that it was my permanent because, this home that I lived in, it was mostly, these people were a little bit more medically complex, put it that way. I don't want to say anything to hurt anyone's feelings because, guys, my throat is dry. I'm going to get me a drink of water real quick. Hold on. You can tell by the sound of my voice. Anyway, I moved into this group home here in Amarillo. I wasn't there for very long, but let me tell you, these people were a lot more medically complex, and I couldn't do a whole lot. But it was kind of like a break. It was peaceful. There was no drama. I didn't have anybody being up under my glut, wanting to be up under my butt all the time. I mean, that was the thing with Glenda. She was constantly right up in my business. I couldn't do anything without her being nosy. Like, Glenda was just a nosy person. But when I moved to Amarillo, to my temporary home, it was just peace and quiet. And I was telling myself, I better embrace this time while I have it. So anyway, I was there. I was able to go home for Christmas as well, since I lived closer to my mom at the time. I mean, at the time my mom was still married to, I'm not even going to mention his name. I shall not mention. Sorry. But I was able to come home. It was easier for me to come home for the holidays or special occasions or whatever. And my mom didn't even have to drive all the way to Lubbock, or that's the thing with living in Lubbock. I had to meet my mom in Amarillo, halfway. It was just easier and convenient. So anyway, yeah, this is what I did. But when I moved back to Amarillo, that wasn't an issue anymore. It was easy for me to go home for the holidays. And while I was living at that group home, in my temporary home, I enjoyed it. I was doing my own thing. Nobody was up under my butt. Nobody was being nosy. I mean, one girl was able to walk, every once in a while she'd just peek in the door because she was curious. I mean, she didn't talk very much, but don't let that fool you, because she probably said a lot. But she was just very curious about me. She wanted to know me, and I would just talk to her how are you doing? A lot of those people that I were living with at the time, they didn't speak. They were unable to speak, unfortunately, but I knew that they understood every word. So, but the staff was nice, and I had some, if I needed to talk to anyone, I was willing, staff was willing to visit with me, and they took me places anytime I wanted to go somewhere. And there were times where we went to the park or the mall, and we'd get ice cream, and we'd go get something to eat, something like that, stuff like that. And February, I moved to my permanent home, and I lived there for about 6 years. It started off okay. Now we had one staff, I don't want to mention her name, but she was an odd duck, but she was just worried about things that really she shouldn't be worrying about. Like, and then I had another girl. You know, at the beginning, she was cool, but about a year later, I started getting things, and she was starting to be a total, pardon my French for saying this, I will say some bad words in this video too, but pardon my French, but she turned out to be a total asshole. And I bought myself an iPod Touch, and she bullied me over, she's like, oh, let me see your iPod, and let's just pretend, let me see your iPod, and then I waited 3 hours to get it back because she was jealous. I mean, that's when I discovered her true colors. She was very mean and mouthy and hateful towards me. And one day, she was like, oh, you want to fight? And I was like, and I told her, okay, I'm tired of your attitude. And I'm not putting up with it. And I do not have to put up with it, and I'm not putting up with it anymore. And she pretty much left me alone after that. So, yeah, she did not mess with me. Then she moved out. Well, we also had this other girl. Okay. I don't know how to put this. Okay, I'm not gonna let this fool me either. But she didn't talk very much either, but then again, she said a lot. And she was pretty much the only person I could really relate to. I mean, at first, I didn't like her. It's not that I didn't like her, it's just I didn't understand. Like, she was doing a lot of, she was kind of doing things like, I don't want to go too much into detail, but I think she was one of those people that required more care, and we can't fault her to it, but I honestly think that they should have had a one-on-one for her, because she did pretty, she was better when she had a one-on-one. And her one-on-one, she was our morning transport. And I still, I haven't even seen her on Facebook in a while, but, a few years ago, I ran into her at Pack-a-Sack, and it was nice to see her again. She was one of those people, like, when this young lady was living with us, we didn't really get to go anywhere because staff was afraid of her. And it would be too much. Like, they were afraid she was going to take off. Like, our dog that we have here, like, how he gets out the gate? She was pretty much the same way. And she would usually come back, but then again, you never know when she'd come back. And what would scare me, I'd be worried that she'd be hit by a car or something bad would happen to her, and she would be seriously hurt or killed. And she didn't understand what she was doing. That was the whole scary thing. So, and then they moved her, I was starting to get attached to her. I really was. And then they decided to move her to one of the other houses. And I was pretty heartbroken about it. Like, I cried, I'm not gonna lie. And looking back, I can understand why they moved her. I think that they were only doing what they felt what was best for her, and they were doing it was best for us too, because they wanted us to be able to do more and have a little bit more freedom. But then we had another girl. She was just like Megan. Megan's the girl that bullied me over my iPod, which, if you're watching this, yeah, don't bully people over their stuff. You don't want to do that. I mean, you wouldn't like it when people did that to you, right? Well, Jennifer was the exact same way. Like 5 years ago, like right before I moved in, I was having anxiety attacks. Like there was times where I would randomly throw up. And I think it was due to anxiety and stress. I mean, I felt trapped. And things were getting to the point where I honestly don't know if I would be alive if I didn't make a change. And I will say that after moving out, I started doing more, and that's when Bug came along. See, she moved in shortly after I did. Like, where I'm at now, I have a lot more freedom. I have a little bit more independence, which I like that. And then I get the freedom of being dropped off places. Because honestly, you know, I get to do things that I didn't get to do while at the group home. I'm not trying to sound like a big fat brag, but it's the truth. But do I regret living in the group home? No. If I hadn't have had that experience, I probably wouldn't be who I am today. And, you know, it was the first step of leaving the nest. I had to work my way to get to where I am right now. And it took me a while, but nonetheless, I did it. And I'm happy I made that change. You know, my anxiety went down, my blood pressure even went down, and it's still down. I started losing weight, and I was at my highest I've ever been. And during the pandemic, when we couldn't go anywhere, I had to keep myself occupied, and I had to, you know, I would only eat when I'm hungry. And I drank a lot of water, which I'm drinking water now, by the way. But anyway, if I hadn't gone through all that, I wouldn't be through that. Like, after dealing with Anna and her crap, you know, I wasn't afraid. I had to show staff I wasn't afraid. Because I had another staff do a similar, like a few months before I moved out, I had another staff do a similar thing, and I had her removed from the house. Like, they pretty much knew not to mess with me. You know? If anything makes you feel uncomfortable, don't hesitate to tell someone. Go talk to somebody. That way they can get that situation taken care of. And I hope my story helps you, because if you are in that similar situation, just know that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you are not happy with your situation, don't hesitate to change. You got to ask yourself, what's the worst that could happen? Stop making up excuses. Quit lying to yourself. You know? It took a lot for me to realize that. a lot. And I'm glad, looking back, I'm glad that I realize it now, and I'm a whole different person. And I like the person who I become because of it. So, anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed my story, and share it if you want to. Now, unfortunately, I think the comments are turned off again, which that's not a big deal, but you know. But share this video with somebody you know who might be going through a similar situation. Anyway, guys, that about wraps up for this story. And peace out, everyone. Have a good day.